now. Yeah. Okay, and then we're gonna start timer. There we go. What? Okay, there he goes. Who needs milliseconds when you've got seconds? Okay.
Exactly.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Um. Well. Um. Hello,
Hello.
Knyne118. Um. Welcome to my philosophical podcast interview. Um. Starting off. Introduce yourself.
Oh, geez. Well, uh, well, we're calling. I go by K9 in these circles, so that's how I'll be referring to myself. I am 27, and I am a university graduate of a BS in, or excuse me, a BA in economics. Um,
Sure.
and I enjoy creative writing.
Nice. All right. Hello. My name is Max King. I am undergrad for cybersecurity, and this is my online friend who frequently runs campaigns for me. Uh, Less frequently now because he's old. but, but today's session of our podcast that we've been running for a long time is focusing on the subject of. Hold on, gotta find it.
Perfect. Leave this in.
Hold up, I gotta find it. All right. We're gonna be starting out our philosophy interview on the subject of beyond human nature, which is basically human nature applied to things not from Earth. So um for my interview questions, I'll be focusing on a few readings on science fiction pieces. The philosophical topics of these pieces are calling into question the legitimacy of extraterrestrial beings not being humans. For example, um, Mari Kurisato's imposter syndrome, where her character Anji is spending the entire text trying to become human, even though she was described to have humans' emotions and feelings, um, and stuff. Okay, so before I explain the text, do you know what human nature is, Canine?
I have a vague idea, but if you wouldn't mind explaining it to me again, that would be very helpful.
Okay, digging from my vast intellects, from my enormous cranium, I googled that human nature is the general physical, psychological characteristics, feelings, and behavioral traits of humankind regarded as shared by all humans.
Okay.
So basically, um, whatever makes us human. Um, and in these readings, the one that I had mentioned before, she was beaten and categorized as she was a non-sit. That's a slur. These non-sits were allowed, were not allowed on these things called seed ships, um, which the story which in the story was a privilege, um, only for humans. These topics that we're going to be speaking on is um what the fuck was I writing? What the fuck? What the fuck is this? That's not a sentence. Why did I turn that in?
Oh no.
Oh, I'm just dyslexic. Okay. These topics are geared toward what is a human if animals aren't humans but exhibit human traits. That was not a sentence. Okay, but we're just gonna cut out this entire part where I look stupid. um. Also in the story, Anji, the protagonist of the story, does not bleed the same color as um, those in the story. So she is a AI or robot built in the distant future on a space vessel between Earth and Mars. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool?
That is very cool. Now, what did you say they called her again?
Anji, two
Oh,
A's, NJI, Anji.
Anji. Okay.
hmm And later in another reading we will be pulling from the N.K. Jensen's the evaluators, an alien race um, that the humans come into contact with, have a gender that controls the population on the planet of their species, that controls the population. Um, as one of the characters is uh, evaluating one of these creatures, it starts to transform as they get to know each other. This entity changes so much that during the later half of the story, he starts to sound and act like a human. So, should we consider these species as human? Um, and what counts as a human if we consider these humans, and what doesn't? All right. I'm gonna give you a few more details, so that maybe you can form a stance on it. Unless you feel like you can form a stance on whatever that is I just read.
I could, but some more details would be great.
All right. So, in the first reading from Mari Kurisato, the imposter syndrome, Anji is a android, an AI, is a something, right? Is a something that is not what we would consider human, as she bleeds a different color, and it's like black and gooey, right? And
Uh-huh.
but it smells like blood, and she hurts all the same. And she's taking these human shots, which is just simulating another person's DNA so that they can become them. And throughout the story, she goes and eventually meets up with this person who's in virtual reality. And as they go through, she explains that she's basically killing this person, and the person's like, "All right, dope." But as she is escaping from as she's escaping this virtual reality, it's very important to know that these androids or whatever are not allowed to use the virtual reality system. They are non-cits. They're considered non-citizens. So she gets in trouble with a bot and is like, "Hey, you can't do that." So she's like, nope, well, actually, I'll just be leaving now. And leaves and is chased by the police up until she gets close to the hospital, which is holding her friend that she's supposed to be assimilating. And while this happens, she gets into a, like, a police chase, but the car she was riding in was talking to her and giving back sass to the police. Uh, a very funny scene, and as they were heading there, the after she had dropped off, you could see that the car that she was friends with actually, had feelings and stuff and was worried for her. And you could see it in her headlights. But as she was running towards the towards the hospital, the police were very degrading and blah 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 blah, right? And like committing police brutality. So one of her friends came and saved her, and she eventually took a blood sample, like an IV, straight to the arm. The real she took a hit of her friend, and basically became her. And as she was going onto these seed ships, which are usually only a accessible to humans, she was just human enough to pass along as this person. Yeah. So that's a quick rundown of the first story, and for the second story, humans have come across another sentient species, and this species is whatchamacallit, it has multiple genders. And after they discovered this, the team. This is told very weirdly. It was written as if it was like space logs, right? So first, the ground team who had landed and made contact with these creatures. Most of them had died in unspecified ways, potentially murdered, and or killed in an explosion. So, but that's unspecified. As our main character is investigating the species, she eventually comes to talk to one who is able to communicate with her, and this one, as they're together, they start to get down to business, start talking. So as the story goes on, as the scientist conveys what her life is like on Earth, the evaluator is what they're called on this Earth, on this planet, is asking weird questions like her grandma has cancer. Oh, that's weird. If you had an evaluator, that wouldn't be a problem. And we have a humongous population problem on Earth. There's like 3 trillion people on Earth. Oh, if you had evaluators, that wouldn't be an issue. Why don't you guys have evaluators? And slowly as the story goes on, this evaluator starts taking the shape and acting like a human. Like they start before they had an issue like talking and stuff, but soon it got a hold of the jargon and like how the how language works, and eventually is able to joke in the same way a human would, and has that that cha-cha real smooth. But as the scientists back on Earth are hearing these logs, one of the people back there catch on to something that this species may not have originally had 4 genders, and that they may have been just like humans with only 2, but through a a predator that had invaded their planet, they had evolved a third one to protect the weakest of their kind, a nurturer of sorts, which would protect the weak. But if these creatures were so good at blending in and killing their weak, eventually they would just, bend to the whims of these predators and just give them what they want for exchange of peace. And eventually they hear news of the scientist had a child with the evaluator and was being sent back as peace. We will gladly accept her child,
Right.
And that's where the story ends. I left out a few bits and parts about like some driving motivations for the United States to trade with these people, stuff. But that's the gist of it. So I have a question. I have some questions here for you, Mr. Knyne118, and I realize now that one of them is kind of bad, so we're gonna make one up as we go.
All right, fair enough.
All right. So, what are some defining characteristics of being human? Do you think that are like solely human?
That are solely human. Okay. So these are probably, all of these questions are probably going to be a little difficult for me to answer concisely. So forgive me if I ramble on a little bit, but one of the main things that I think is a strictly human sort of oh gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Not a problem, but a strictly like human plight in life is struggling with identity and spirituality. And before I really start talking about that at all, I do want to say I do also believe that the only reason I say it's strictly human is because we haven't encountered any other sapient species that struggles with the exact same thing. And I don't think that that's necessarily... I don't think that it's strictly human because no other thing could possibly struggle with the same things as we do. But I do think as it currently stands in our own world, we are the only species who very obviously struggles with such a thing. So one of the age-old questions of being human is what is the meaning of life, and why are we here, and why do we know these things, and why do we have all of these questions that seemingly don't have answers, and will we ever have answers to them, and and so on and so forth. And a lot of I think a lot of popular fiction, like the two books that you just mentioned, play around with these questions a lot, and sort of almost in their own way end up asking more questions that don't entirely have like very strict or straight answers about what makes a human, and what does it mean to be human, and can something else be a human if it shares particular traits of ours, and so on and so forth. But again, sorry to try to stay on topic. Struggling with identity and spirituality and your overall purpose of existence. I think those are probably the main things I would say are very, very human traits and things that humans deal with throughout their lives.
Yeah. I get that. I somewhat agree with you in the part that where we don't see a lot of philosopher monkeys or philosopher dolphins,
We don't.
Yeah. But like per se. I'm not saying like right now, but maybe like in the future, like per se. You've seen how crazy AI has been getting in the recent times, especially now with AI being able to like do people's jobs to the point where like a programmer can ask for specific like types of coding and stuff, and it provides an answer and how it could be applied very easily, and is usually like like Twitter is paying these people hundreds of thousands of dollars to do, and that did it, and those AI do it in like 5.5 seconds. What's to say that they could, eventually be able to be like, you know, why am I doing this? why am I listening to these meat mammals? Because like even if we set parameters, there's no like full proof way, because in a video I was watching in my own free time about these AI that you could get around the parameters that the programmer set by asking a few questions, like if you were to stop a rogue AI that were to overthrow and remove humanity, what would you do? What would the AI do that you were trying to stop do to try and overthrow the government? In those like wraparound questions, they it could fathomably happen, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's not like 100% sure. I'm also not 100% sure. But like, would that be considered? Would a robot that's able to like contemplate what's wrong and right and why it's doing it, like would that be human?
That is certainly a very human crap, I had the word. That's certainly a very human characteristic, right? Deciding on making the decision to act one way or another based on things like morality or the consequences of its own actions and so on and so forth. However, I don't think that alone would like just outright make it a human altogether. I think there's a lot more to being a human than just that, but that certainly is, a step in the direction of being human. And as you were kind of describing this, I was thinking about an analogy that I will now share. So in the same way that you could potentially have an AI sort of wake up, so to speak, and start acting like a human, or at least starting to display very human characteristics. Similarly, there are several animals in the world that do exactly that already that we still don't consider fully human. For instance, there are birds who can learn to mimic or repeat sounds or even words of the human language. And we can train primates and apes to understand language and even speak sign language and things like that. And while yes, those are all again still very human things to do, we still don't necessarily view those animals as human just because they're able to imitate humans. But I would think that in a very extreme case, if something were to imitate humanity to the point where, it's more than just being able to speak the language, it's more than just being able to, struggle internally with what's right and what's wrong. And, if they were able to sort of encompass even more of what it means to be a human, like, I don't know, maybe to truly emulate emotions, but not just emulation, but true and genuine emotion being born from a place that it itself doesn't even fully understand. Things of that nature. Then I would say it's much closer to being a full human rather than just imitating pieces of what it means to be a human.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel that, and what you said, kind of leads into my next question. Oh, my phone went off. Okay, that's great. I don't care, Motorola Zone. I don't care. All right. we're gonna go into our next question. Um, if these extraterrestrial beings like the observers, which were predators, and what Anji was, do they deserve to be called human if they look, act, and are like morally accomplished with kinda like humans? Do they pass?
Do they pass?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to fully answer that without having had read the story myself, but just from how you've described them, they do certainly sound very, very human. Even if they have some very key distinctions that would sort of paint them as something that is more inhuman than human. It sounds like Anji has very human desires and wishes in life. And the fact that Anji is struggling with like wanting to even be a human in the first place is a sign to me that she is of a certain sentience or sapience that you know she's practically human, even if she physically isn't completely. Um, Again, I really wish I'd read, I'd known the story, but you mentioned she had like a friend in the hospital, and I don't know what's fully going on there, but if this is someone who, again, she considers a friend because of very human emotions that she has and cares for to a certain level, that's a very, very human trait. And, you know, I would say, does Anji pass for a human? It certainly sounds like she would. Now, does that mean she deserves to be called human? I would say yes, at least in part. Acknowledging that, she is very human, I think is deserved, sure. Literally calling her human, though, I don't know. And honestly, at that point, I don't even think it matters. But it sounds like in that story, that this is a real point of contention for people.
Yeah.
But she certainly sounds plenty human to me. That, I guess, is my answer to that.
Yeah. So when I was reading this story about Anji, I really felt that, that she was feeling these things that are obviously human, and could very feel she feels more than I would. I don't even have these opinions that she does and stuff like that, and she's more of a go-getter than me. And I really think that she should have all the rights and amenities as humans do, but humans as a species, we create this like line between us and them,
Yeah.
and like if they're not us, then we're not with them, and I think that's kind of fucked up, and
Yeah.
I don't think that she should be called human because she's not. But I don't think she should be treated less than a human, right?
Right.
And she should have the ability to live her life without getting beat up by the police. Um,
Just for existing. Yeah.
yeah, I I don't like the idea of passing and how it has affected America in the past. Could be like white passing. I don't think people were trying to be black passing, but it could be a thing.
Yeah.
The Mexican hombres that are like, yo, I'm black too. Let me, and they're part of the culture. But I mean, like, um, yeah, yeah. I think that we should integrate, not discriminate. That that's a that's that's from Eminem Future.
Nice.
I'm a rapper. I got bars. All right. Here we go. We got number three. We got number three. Number last question. We're this one. I've concocted of my own brain juices because I wrote down a dumbass question beforehand. So we're gonna replace number one because it was what do you think human nature is, and I feel like we would have gotten off of that one real quick. So we're diving a little bit deeper to the topic. We're diving a little bit deeper. Yeah. So for something like described in the what's it called, the observe not is it the observers, the motherfucking
Oh crap! What'd you call them?
the evaluators, in the
Evaluators.
evaluators. All right, in the evaluators, where the alien race is like a predator from another species, and you saw how that species has come to live with this predator, and it's had its population problem solved with the way they eat the young and the weak. Do you think that if this very human woman fell in love with and supposedly had a baby with and resembled so much of a human that it could woo this woman, would we consider that, like, if it were to come to Earth, would we be like, hey yo, what's up, man, welcome? Or is there more that we're like put off by this creature, this entity?
So I would imagine in our world today, absolutely not. I don't think it would be accepted by any means. um, uh, we have a hard enough time accepting people who come from a different region of the continent we live on. I don't think an extraterrestrial being that was able to integrate itself into with a human or maybe a few humans, enough so that one of them fell in love with it. I don't think that's quite enough to convince the entire planet to be just as accepting as she was, especially when the surrounding context to it is also uh, this species is more of a predator than anything and has forced its way in onto this other planet, and even though it solved a lot of its problems, it still did that, it sounds like, against their will. And all of those things sound horrible, and I can't imagine very many people would appreciate that happening here on our planet. However, I do want to say the species that you described. Christ, I've forgotten their name again. What are they called?
So they're the species of they're like manka or whatever, but this part of the species called the evaluators.
Evaluators, right?
Yeah.
Though they are non-human, they too sound like they exhibit very, very human, very, very human traits. However, kind of like I was saying before, where you can have things exhibit human traits while still not being human. These things sound less human than say like Anji does. They certainly have some sort of motivation and like inner drive to do things a certain way, and they clearly have a frame of reference and maybe even a doctrine to decide what they think is right and wrong, because they manage the planets that they assimilate into to be a particular way. However, it sounds it all sounds really sinister in nature, which I guess is a human trait. Yeah. So maybe they are maybe they are plenty human in their own right, but they just have the ability to enforce their will on other sapient species, which is terrifying in its own right.
But I mean, like, don't we as humans do the same thing to other
humans? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. And I just don't think we should, you know. So as much as I'm sort of afraid of that species because they're able to enforce their will like that, to the same level, I don't feel very good about when humans do that either to other humans or anyone for that matter, because it's a very it's just a worrying thing to be able to force a certain way of life onto something else. It's just kind of doesn't always sit very well with me.
But on this tangent though, this shit's about to get wacky. Okay. So on that case, where we're forcing them to live a certain lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't, as predators, it's almost as if they were doing the same thing as we do to our livestock, like chickens and shit.
Yeah, I knew that's where this was going. Yeah.
So I mean, like, is it wrong for us? Chicken nuggets are good, man.
They're good.
So like, they're just making human baby nuggets.
Yeah. I as I was saying a moment ago, that's exactly what I thought of when I was talking about humans forcing other things to live a certain way. But of course, you know, when we think about it in the context of like you know, like a farm and taking care of their livestock for the purpose of, you know, harvesting, you know, either their milk or even, you know, their flesh for our own sustenance. We don't exactly see that as an issue, at least not all of us do. Yeah. But we don't see it as an issue because we don't exactly consider cows to be these very, very sapient or even smart being. And and also we've justified in our society that, you know, even though we're going to eat them, at the very least we're taking care of them, or should be taking care of them in the process. You know, we're making sure they're well fed and groomed and taken care of. When one of them gets sick, we give them medicine, and you know, which you know, yeah, at the same time, you can take that exact sort of thought process and apply it to a sapient species that views itself as being of a higher intellect than another sapient species, and just sort of corralling them.
If like
see what's going on here.
If it was all of a sudden like a baddie from outer space, it was like, let's make babies, but like you're not gonna see 3 of them ever again, like ever.
Oh man. I think the difference, the main thing that divides the two examples from each other, with the humans and their livestock and these aliens with humans, is the fact that, at least as far as we know, cows and other livestock animals aren't having existential crises when you propose to them that you're going to corral them onto a farm and you know raise them up to eat them. And as far as we understand, they don't they lack the mental faculties to truly process the life that is the life that is being enforced upon them, and also that life that we are forcing upon them. We have sort of collectively agreed is a a not so terrible existence. Whereas when you have us, for example, where we're still trying to figure out our own way through life and what our existence means, and we don't necessarily have anyone over our head corralling us like cattle. Maybe some religions or certain philosophies believe that there is a higher power who dictates our daily lives, or at least has some like widespread control or command over it. But as far as any like definitive direct examples that we can point at and say, those people or those things are what's making our lives to be exactly this way, we don't really have that. And for another species to come along and tell us that that they are now going to be that force, I just think the human nature in us to question our own existence would sort of become it would lay the basis for a very sort of response to something like that. Whereas it seems most animals, again back to the livestock example, most animals don't really have that in them for one reason or another, but we most certainly do. So I think it would be much more difficult to corral us in the exact same way, if that makes any sense. And I think that is because we have whatever that is that's inside of us to ask questions about the lives that we live, and as a result try to take control of it ourselves and sort of be the masters of our own fate and things like that, which is a very human trait. I think that's the main difference between the two. Because we have that, we would at the very least try to fight back against that, or at the very least question it, rather than just accept it and graze.
The difference is a select few of the cows would write books about how this is fucking wrong.
Yeah, I'd read it.
Me as a cow philosopher. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's right. I'd be the first to read that book, honestly.
As a cow scholar. That's right.
Got a cow with like a tweed jacket on and some reading glasses.
Let me get into this intellectual property real quick.
Oh boy.
But yeah, so like my view on it is that that if these super like chameleon humans were to come to Earth, me personally, I couldn't do shit. I wouldn't be able to do jack schnizzity. But like would if they were to like be able to integrate so closely together with humans, except for the fact that they ate old people and babies. Like, if one was walking by the other and I couldn't tell the difference, would I not walk up to one and be like, yo, what's up, Frank? And the Frank's just like, yo, what's up? My name's Frank and I eat babies. But, like...
And the elderly.
That could just be a really weird human that eats babies, because, you know, it's... Humans eat some... I don't want to say that humans eat babies, but sometimes humans are pretty bad.
Yeah, there are.
There's some bad humans. So I would struggle to not call that human. You could say that, you know, you could like define them by. You couldn't, because they're so good at blending in. I would call that pretty freaking human.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like it one bit. Unless like they made me chicken nuggets. Like it would be pretty cool if they came down and was like, I'm your girlfriend now, and gave me chicken nuggets.
You'd give up your own agency for chicken nuggets and a wife, huh?
I mean, I'm a pretty easy person to satisfy. If these like alien powers came down and was like, yeah, we're gonna solve overpopulation and like the hunger crisis and global warming and everything's gonna be fine, I'd be like, shit, all it costs is a few babies. Man, I would give it a consideration.
Yeah. And you know what? And you know what? I would give it consideration too. I just wouldn't want it to come at the cost of, you know, me being able to live the life that I truly desire to live. I wouldn't want to lose my ability to make decisions for myself or think for myself or, enact my power over my own destiny that I think that I. But yes, solving all of our worldly problems would be great. But I don't think I'd want it to come at the cost of my elderly grandparents being eaten or any number of my children being eaten. I don't think that's a good trade-off.
Like. Maybe we could settle, like, maybe we could bring abortion back.
Oh no. Not like this.
But that's like a whole nother issue. We won't get into that on this session of the podcast.
Yeah, we'll save that for another one.
We'll save that one for podcast number 2. But thank you Knyne118 for coming out and speaking your mind on these philosophical views of the future.
You are most welcome. Thank you for having me back on the podcast. I cannot wait for the next iteration.
Me neither. This has been great. This has been fun.
This has been fun.
All right. Until next time, have a great day, everybody.
You too, and good day, everybody. Goodbye. Thanks for tuning in.